Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tom Bell from ISE, and I'll be your moderator for this Lunch and Learn session. This is our ISE's Lunch and Learn sessions that we do about every 3 weeks on various topics that might be of interest to our customers. And today's topic is PUI, otherwise known as Product Updates Tool from Infor. I have a couple of housekeeping items before we begin here. First of all of the attendees are going to be in listen-only mode. And if you have any questions, I would encourage you to use the chat window in your GoToWebinar control panel there and just shoot the question to us that way, and we'll try and field those. We might not address the questions until the end, but at least I'll know what's there, and then I can give Sharon an idea of what's going on. So use the chat window there. Also in the handouts section of the control panel, you'll see that Sharon has the PDF document there that contains all of the slides from today's presentation. And if that's not enough for you, we're also recording the presentation. And if you send a request to Sharon or me or Richard Shu, we can make sure that we get you a copy of the recording. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get started. We were having a few technical difficulties for us, so I apologize. We had a 1-minute delay on the front end here. Hopefully Sharon's got what she needs to get going. Our presenter today is Sharon Foster. She's a senior programmer analyst with ISE, and she's going to teach you everything you need to know about getting started with PUI.
Hey, thanks, Tom. I'd like to welcome everybody today to our Lunch and Learn on PUI. Tom and I are the two people at ISE that do XA upgrades, and I actually initially learned PUI because of my work with these upgrades. So it is a little bit of a difficult tool to get started with, which is why I created this presentation. It actually took me about 3 tries over the course of a couple of years before I finally really started to understand how to use it. And I didn't really have a choice because Infor support started asking, when I would bring up, questions about upgrades, well, what does the PUI analysis show? So I didn't really have a choice after that. I had to learn it. But hopefully this presentation today will help you to learn it as well and give you a good jump start. All right, so PUI stands for Product Update Information, and it is a tool that is provided to you in Powerlink. It can help you identify object errors in your XA environment. So just to clarify on that, by an object, I mean our environments are made up of files, they're made up of programs, and each one of those has a PTF level that is associated with it. So that's what I mean. If we get these objects at the wrong levels in our environment, then we can have problems. Okay, so the first thing that I want to tell you about PUI is that you load it to your green screen on your iSeries, even though we use it in Powerlink. So it's just delivered as a PTF, similar to any other PTF that you would normally download. And you do it the same way. You go ahead and put it in your AFD web folder and you do your AFD web get to get it. The PUI database is updated every day, and so it may be a little different today than it was yesterday. There's actually 2 different flavors of PUI, if you will. We have the full PUI database, which is delivered under PTF number SH15426. If you're on 9.1, you would want to get the 690 version of that. If you're at 9.2, you would, of course, want to get the 692 version. And then the second flavor of PUI is the Delta PUI database, which only includes the changes for the last 2 months. And you can see that is PTF SH15429, and of course you would get the one appropriate to your system. Okay, so once you've put that in your AFD web folder and you've done your AFD web get, you're going to use this command within your XA environment to load PUI called update PUI data. Excuse me. So you just type that in and then you press F4. And then you will put in the PTF number that you just loaded and QGPL, because of course when you do your AFD web get, that gets stored in QGPL. And then you would just go ahead and press enter. And what you'll see next is this message: product update files are being updated. And this process usually takes about 5 minutes. So it doesn't really end quickly. But when it does, you will see this message at the bottom of your screen that says job update PUI data completed. Okay, so I know I kind of went over those steps quickly. So what I would like to do now is show you a little video that I recorded of what it's like to actually load PUI onto your iSeries. So let's play that. Okay, so this is assuming that you've already downloaded the PTF and you've put it in your AFD web folder. And of course, we will add AFD www.obj to our library list so that we can issue our AFD webget command. We just go ahead and F4 on that command and put in the PTF number that we're loading. Just press enter. Okay, so what I'm just showing you now is that this is now loaded into CubeGPL. There it is. So now we can issue our update PUI data command. F4. Go ahead and fill that in. QGPL. Here's our message that we'll get for about 5 minutes. And then you get that little message at the bottom of the screen when it's all completed. So it's that easy to load the PUI database onto your system. Okay, so as I had mentioned earlier, PUI is a tool that's actually used within Powerlink. So you would sign on to Powerlink and you will want to click on your environment tab once you sign in. And then once you are on that card, down at the bottom, you will see these sub tabs and you're going to want to pick the one that says product updates. And then on that card, you will see this little icon that looks like this. This is the PUI icon that just says updates. All right, so if we click that open, here's what you're going to see. So basically what PUI is, it's a list of all of the PCMs and PTFs that are available for your XA environment. So in this case, in this update column, it says what all the different PTFs are that you can analyze. You'll notice at the moment, though, all of these say 692 at the end, which is fine because that is what we loaded. But we're going to do something a little bit different with this. Okay, so I'm sure that many of you have gone through the experience of wanting to put a PTF on your iSeries. And what you have to do, of course, is go out and look at the cover letter. And then on the cover letter, there might be prerequisite PTFs that are listed that you have to put on first. And then sometimes there's prereqs and so on. So this is the same type of process that PUI uses when it's doing its analysis. Now, for version 9 of XA, of course, we know there's sort of like the 9.1 world and the 9.2 world. And what I want you to remember is that the 9.1 stuff, if you will, was a prerequisite to the 9.2 stuff. And so in order for us to be able to do thorough PUI analyses, we need to get both the PTFs from 9.1 and 9.2 into PUI together. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of work to do that, and we're gonna create this new icon called All Updates. Okay, so right in the background here, you can see this is our product updates card, and here's our little updates icon. So what you will want to do to add the new icon is go to the menu or the drop down at the top, and you're gonna do Customize Cards. And then the product updates card will already be highlighted since we're on that card. And then we're going to use the pencil to change. Okay, so the next screen you're going to see is actually a screen that has two different panes, but in the interest of you guys actually being able to read what this says, I'm just showing the left pane right here. So this is just a list of all of the icons that you can pick. And I'm saying icons instead of objects. Technically they're called objects, but just to keep confusion out of the presentation. So we're gonna pick this icon for environment updates. And we're gonna use this little double arrow to basically move it onto our card. So when you do that, you're going to have this little window pop up, and it's going to ask you if you would like to change the label that will be on the icon. So in this case, we want to do that. We want it to say all updates so that we can tell it apart from the regular PUI icon that just says updates. Okay, so you just change the label and then click the continue button. And now this is the right pane that you're going to see, which basically lists all of the icons that are on your card. And you can see our environment updates icon has been added. And it also reflects the fact that we changed the label to say all updates. Okay, so once you have saved and applied that, you will see that we have this new PUI icon. However, in your case, you might have to sign out of Powerlink and sign back in before you're going to see it. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so again, just to show you what this is like to actually do, I have another recording for you. So let me go ahead and play that now. Okay, so there's our old PUI icon right there. And we're going to go customize cards. Product updates card is already highlighted, so we're going to just click on the pencil. Okay, so here's that double paned screen that I was referring to. So on the left, we have a list of all our objects. We're looking for environment updates. And then we can use our double arrow to move that over to the right pane, and that'll get it'll get added to the end. But first, we're of course going to change our label. Click continue. So now we can see that it has been added. So after you do that, you're going to want to hit apply, and then it'll ask you if you want to save. You can just say yes. And then you'll see your new icon right there. And as I said, you have to sign off and sign on to see it. But once you do that, it should be there. If we open it up now, we can see that we have a mixture of both 690 and 692 PTFs showing all together, which is exactly what we wanted. All right, here is a screenshot that shows that a little more closely. And so you can see the 690s and the 692 together. So what I want to show you here is that before you've analyzed anything, this is what PUI is going to look like, and it's going to have some question marks. It's going to have like no status. It might have this little exclamation point with this status of C cover letter. You don't need to worry about any of that. That's just how it looks before any analysis has been done. Okay, so let me show you a little example of just analyzing one PCM. So if you look here in the background, you can see this is the PCM for adding XA 9.2, also known as 20079. So if we just wanted to analyze this one, we would go ahead and just highlight it the way it's shown here. And then we would go up to our menu and we would do File and Host Jobs. And then we'll have this little window that pops up. And so what you'll want to do is put in a little description. You may be running, several analysis jobs. So this is a good way to keep them apart and know which one was which. So in here, I just put in Analyze 20079, very simple. You just come down here and you click the Submit button, and then you get this little confirmation window that comes up. Just to make sure that you really want to submit the job, you can just say yes, and then your job will be off and running. So you'll be able to see your analysis job right here in green screen. This is what it looks like. If you like to watch your jobs in Powerlink, you can just stay within PUI and go up to the top, drop down and do File, Status, and then this little window will come up that has the history of your jobs, and you can see our PUI job is in process. Here is the description that we typed in, Analyze 20079, and so you'll know it's done when this status changes to star complete. Okay, so now our analysis has finished, and you can see we have a different little picture right here, and this actually says partially applied. So what you would want to do then is double click on that line for more information to see why it was only partially applied. So up here it tells us what PCM we're looking at, and then down here in this area it's going to give you information about why it's only saying it's partially applied. So you can see we have 2 different PTFs that were prerequisites for the PCM, and the reason that these are coming up here is because we only analyzed 1 PCM in PUI. We didn't analyze anything else, and so you can see here this prerequisite says not analyzed. So what this means is that PUI doesn't have enough information at this point to know whether or not your PCM was completely applied. So that means that we have to analyze these prerequisites and then reanalyze the PCM. But I'm going to show you a good way to avoid this problem in the first place. Okay, so PUI's term for these are unapplied prerequisites. And so I like to do something that I call analyze all first. So basically what this is we want to analyze all of the PTFs that are in 9.1 as a group, and then we want to analyze all of the PTFs that are in 9.2 as a group. So in order to do that, you're basically going to subset your list within PUI first to 690 PTFs, and then to 692 PTFs, and I'm going to show you how to do that on the next slide. And then you're going to analyze each of those groups. So I want to tell you a couple of things about Analyze All. It does take a long time because, think of all the PTFs and PCMs that are at 9.1 and at 9.2. It just takes a long time for it to spin through them all. It can take 30, 45 minutes or more to run. It runs in queue batch, as you might have noticed earlier. And so if your queue batch is single threaded, you might want to think about your timing to running this job because it could block other jobs that are trying to run. Also, the Analyze All job always shows a high CPU percent in work active jobs. So don't be alarmed by that. It's perfectly normal. Okay, so I said that I would show you how to do the subset. So here we are back inside PUI. This is our little updates column that has our list of all our different PTFs and PCMs. So you would just right click on this little header, and then you have a submenu pop out, and you would pick Customize and Subset Criteria. You'll have this little window popping up over here, and this is where you describe your subset. So I know it might be a little hard to see. There are actually tabs up here. So Containment is one of the tabs. You want to click on that, and then you'll get this specific submenu. You want to pick Ends With, and like I said, you're going to want to do the 690 set first, but this slide shows 692. So I'm just picking 692 over here for the value, and then you just say Apply. And then when you come back, you're going to see either the 690 or the 692, whichever one it is that you subsetted to as the entirety of the list. So you won't want to click on anything because we've already subsetted the list. But what you'll do now is you're going to run your host job again. So you're going to come up here, you're going to go File, Host Jobs, and then you're going to get that screen where you put in your description. And you're going to submit it, and then you're going to get that next little window. That's the confirmation window, and you're just going to say yes, and your job will start to run. Okay, so now that we have done our analysis, we're going to get into how to resolve the errors that you're going to see. So one little note, Powerlink screens cannot refresh on their own. So make sure after you do your Analyze All that you press F5 on the PUI screen so that you see all of your new information coming in. Okay, so here's an example of something you might see. So here's our little PCM for 20079 again that we have highlighted. And you're going to get a summary of your errors over here on the right-hand side. And here's a little bit of a blown up representation so you can see it. So in this case, we have 15 pending object errors. We have some open alerts, and we have one unapplied prerequisite. Okay, so the way that you figure out where you are in PUI is by using 3 sets of tabs. So you can see there are a set of tabs at the top, there's a set of tabs over on the side, and then there's another set of tabs down on the bottom. And so for each kind of error, I'm going to tell you how to set these tabs so you can look at those specific types of errors. Okay, so in order to see your unapplied prerequisites, you would pick status on the top tab, all on the right tab, and prerequisites on your bottom tab. Okay, so I think I already mentioned that you can get an unapplied prerequisite error if you have not done Analyze All, but since we've all done it, we wouldn't expect to get these kinds of errors unless there actually was truly an unapplied prerequisite that is not on your system. Okay, so if that's the case, you would just apply the PTF, which is the prerequisite, and then you would redo your analysis, but only on, in this example, just on that one PCM for 20079. You don't have to keep doing the Analyze All when you're fixing the errors. You just do that the first time to get all of your background data set up, and then you can just fix your errors and then just rerun the one PTF or PCM that had the error, and you'll see them update then, and those will run really fast. Don't forget to press F5 to refresh after you reanalyze. Okay, so now we're going to move on to open alerts, which is our second type of error that we might see. And we will want to pick status on the top tab, all on the right tab, and open alerts on the bottom tab in order to see this type of error. Okay, so an open alert error tells you when PUI thinks that an object is in the wrong place, meaning it's in the wrong library, okay? So there's actually 2 different types of open alerts. We have our user modified open alert. And so you're going to get these when you have customized some XA programs and put them in a custom library called something like, XA map mods, because you're going to have that custom library in your library list. So PUI is going to see the object both in AMA lib, and it's also going to see it in your custom library. So that's going to give you a user modified open alert. Now the other type of open alert is the not expected one. And these are the ones that you want to try to fix, because that means that PUI is seeing an XA object that is located in an unexpected place. Okay, so I kind of wanted to show you overall what the screen looks like. I'm going to zoom in here on the error in a second. So your error, so here's your tabs here, right? Status, all, and open alerts, and right here in the middle is where you're going to get your error messages. Okay, so here I'm zooming in on that same error message. So we have this object that starts with AMZ, and it's saying it needs review because there was a not expected alert with it. So if you double click on this, it's going to open up a new screen, and that screen is going to have several subtabs on it. This that I'm showing you right here is what you will see if you click on the product object tab. So basically what this is showing, think of this like 2 columns. So The current object is represented in this column, and that is what PUI is seeing on the system. The pending object information is represented in the second column, and this is basically the information about what PUI expected to see. So in this case, we can see that this object was found in QGPL, and PUI only expected to see it in AMA Lib. Okay, so in order to resolve this error, what I did is I went and I did a work object all on the system. You can see we got our list here of all the different ones. So here's the QGPL one, and here's the one that's in AMA Lib. And then I used the display object description command on both of these to investigate. Okay, so this is showing the display object description command. If you roll down one page, here's our object. It's in QGPL. And so, as I mentioned earlier, every object in XA has a PTF level. And normally you would see that represented right here. But as you can see, it's blank, and it also should have an APAR ID shown on the next line. This is what is known in XA as branding. And so what happens is if you copy an XA object, the branding falls off, as it did in this case. So I have heard, I've not experienced this, but I've heard that if you try to use a non-branded object, that XA can refuse to do what you want and use that object. Okay, so in this case, basically what I decided is that this particular object should not be in QGPL, and so I went ahead and deleted it. That's not necessarily going to be your action every single time. You have to research each one and decide what the appropriate action is to fix the problem. And then of course, once you delete that object and you reanalyze, then that error will go away. Okay, so this is a second example. And what we see here is that we have some user modified open alerts and we have some not expected open alerts. So here's what I was saying, that you can see and recognize that these are XA objects that are probably sitting in a custom library because they've been modified. We don't need to worry about those. You would of course want to review though, in the context of your system to make sure you agree that these things should be showing up like this. For our unexpected alerts, we do want to solve these problems. Okay, so let's look at these unexpected ones in a little more detail. So here again, we have our current PTF information, which shows the PTF level that PUI is finding the object at, and it's saying, well, the pending PTF level is where we want to see the object. But I'm going to give you all a second just to look at this and see if you notice anything odd about this. Okay, so the odd thing is that the current PTF level is actually greater than the pending PTF level. Now, this is a little peculiarity with PUI. It's looking for an exact match on the PTF level in its database, and it does not understand that if the PTF level of the current object is greater than that, that is perfectly fine. So it will show these errors, but if you have this particular type of situation, you do not have to correct them. Everything will be fine. Okay, and so for pending objects errors, these are the third type of error that we would be looking at in PUI. And to see these, we are going to go to Contents on the top tab, General on the right tab, and Pending on the bottom tab. So I consider these to be the most important errors because PUI thinks that an object is actually at the wrong PTF level. And so that can cause applications to blow up, and then you have lots of users calling you saying, hey, my application blew up, so can you please fix it? So that's what we're trying to prevent when we're analyzing these types of errors. In this section as well, I'm going to show you this other icon called Update Objects, just because I think it also can be useful to you, and it does include some information that is similar to what we see within PUI, so I will touch on that. And then I want to point out that you can use Infor Extreme to do research on some of these errors, as well as contacting Infor support if you cannot resolve the errors yourself. Okay, so just to orient you to what the screen looks like, see up on the top we have Contents. And you'll notice when we click Contents, these tabs on the right changed. So now we're going to click General over on the right and Pending down at the bottom. Okay, so, oh, and I'm sorry, I should have pointed out that all the errors are just right here in the middle of the screen. Okay, so here's a more close-up view so you can see them. So I often see with these errors that they will come in groups. So I wouldn't count these as 15 or so errors. I would actually count this as 3 errors. So we have this first object, disk member. Then we have all of these objects that start with ENTORR. That would be the second error. And then the 2 that start with IGGSH is a third error. Okay, so let's look at that disk member object first. So if we double click on that error, we will get a screen that looks like this. And the point of this screen is to give you some suggested PTFs to try and bring that object up to the desired PTF level. Now this one is funny because we found this error by analyzing our 20079 PCM, whose PTF number is SH16055. Well, if you look down here in your list of suggested fixes, it's showing the exact same PTF number. So this is not useful information to us, and we have to try something different to resolve this error. So in this case, I went out on Infor Extreme and looked to see if I could find something about the error. All you have to do is click the object in, type in the object in error, and then type in PUI and search to see if you can find a KB article about how to resolve the error. So in this case, I found a very close KB article that says disk member and this other file are at incorrect levels after R9.2 upgrade for update SH16055. So that's exactly what we were looking for. And all you do then is whatever the KB tells you. So in this case, you apply this PTF SH57334 to fix the error, and then you just reanalyze, and that error will disappear. Okay, so this is our second group of objects for error number 2. And in this case, when I clicked these open, I did not find any helpful information. So I actually just asked Infor support about this one, and they advised that this was actually due to an error in the PUI database that had been corrected. Remember earlier I said that PUI is updated every single day. So in this case, they said, we'll just download the database again and reanalyze. And sure enough, all of these errors disappeared. Okay, so here's our third set of objects that are in error. And so if I were to click into these, I would get that whole screen, but I've just zoomed in on the list of suggested PTFs for updating to the correct level. So when you see this list, you're always looking for a single PTF to try and correct your error. So what I mean by that is we know SH16055 is a PCM that corrects all kinds of things, and we already applied it, so we don't want to pick that one. SH16113 and SH16115 are both PTF bundles, so we would not want to use that to try and correct this error. So that leaves this little one, SH58634. And if you look this up on Infor Extreme, you'll see this is just a single PTF, which we could then apply to correct the error. Okay, and I said I was going to mention this little update objects icon. And so this is basically on the same card as PUI. And it shows very similar information to what we were just looking at within PUI. It's basically sort of like a where used table showing all of the different PCMs and PTFs that have been used to update any given object. So in this case, you can just go right on this heading and subset down to only see this IGG, SH, these two objects. And then here are the recommended updates. So again, we're looking for a single PTF. We already know SH16055 doesn't work. We know that SH16113 and 16115 are PTF bundles. And as it turns out, 16132 is also a PTF bundle. So that once again leaves us with this little PTF SH58634, which of course is the single PTF you would want to apply to update your PUI error. Okay, so I do want to leave you with some resources. Of course, if you have any questions about our presentation today or what was covered, you can email me directly at sharon.foster@ise-erp.com. I want to remind you also that this presentation is in your control panel as a handout, which you can download. You should also remember that you can look for solutions on Infor Extreme, and you can also ask Infor support to help you, and they will be very happy to do that. And then these last 3 bullet points are for basically documents that you can find on Infor Extreme to help you with your efforts with getting started with PUI. This first one was actually recorded by Irma Zamet of Infor support. It's a recording, so it's kind of nice because just similar to this presentation, you can see the different screens that she's going to and she explains what she's doing. That's the one I would start with first, and you can see you can find it at this KB number. There's also a product updates tutorial, which you can find by just searching those keywords on Infor Extreme. And then there is this crash course for analyzing pending objects at this KB number. So I guess what I want to leave you with is, yes, PUI is a bit of a difficult tool to learn how to use, but you can learn how to use it. I'm hoping that this little presentation will give you sort of a quick start to start working with PUI, and then basically you just have to do the work of, you know, looking at the results you get. I mean, I remember a lot of time just looking at those screens saying, you know, what does this mean? So, you know, it does take a little time, but if you make the effort to, you know, really go through a whole analysis and stick with it, pretty soon you will realize that you are becoming proficient with PUI. Okay, so we're going to take questions now. If anybody has a question at this time, I would like to invite you to type them into the chat box and send them to us. Tom, do we have any questions so far?
Sharon, no, just looking at the chat box, we don't have any yet, but it might have been because people were paying attention to what you were saying and doing there. So we'll give everybody a minute here, see if we have any questions that pop up. And if we do, we'll address them. If not, we can we'll be wrapping up. And if you're not comfortable putting the message into the chat, or maybe you think that your question is too specific to you or your system, we can always take those questions offline too. And so Sharon's got her contact information there. So if you've got anything that's a particular problem for you, or preventing you from being able to use the tool the way you ought to be able to, or the way that Infor support expects you to, perhaps ISE can be of some help there as well. So it looks like we don't have any questions here, Sharon. So this will conclude our session for today. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon in the Lunch and Learn series.
Thanks, everybody.